Now, winterizing your RV protects it from freezing temperatures, but even when you do everything right, those hidden water leaks can still show up when you de-winterize. In this video, I'll cover the most common water leaks I see inside of RVs after winter storage, what causes them, and how to check for leaks before they become bigger problems. Now, let's get into it. Now, looking at the slide-out seals, coming a little closer, there's two parts to your seal. This one that sticks out, this is your D seal. This keeps the water out of the slide out. When the slide out closes, it compresses this. If this seal is torn or broken, water can get in behind it, especially on the top of the slide out. And this one is your wiper seal. This more so protects your slide out when the slide out is out, keeping water out right now. Now, if this is damaged, water can leak into the RV when the slide out is in because it can't seal when it's fully compressed. And if I have some pictures of these things I'm talking about, I'll put them on the screen so you can see some examples of what you don't want to see in your RV. These seals right here are in good shape because this RV has been maintained, but sometimes things fall apart because seals dry out, they crack, and they shrink, and things don't seal over time and need to be maintained or replaced. Now let's go up on the roof and look at some skylights and vents. So let's get down and look at the skylight itself. So first off, let's look at the plastic. So when the skylights age over time, the plastic becomes brittle, and you'll start seeing some spider cracks down in the edges. Usually they're near the screw areas down in here. When they sit over the winter, that's when things get brittle and they crack, so you notice that more so in the springtime. Especially the skylight, it already is old and aged and ready to be replaced. And you're also looking at the sealant around these areas. So if you see any gaps or cracks or little air bubbles that potentially have popped and need to be resealed, that's time to take a look at that. You can do some easy spot resealing if that's what it needs, or if the skylight needs to be replaced, you'll scrape all the sealant off, replace the skylight, so that way you take care of that water leak that way. And a clue that the skylight might have issues is you'll see some staining around the trim inside of your shower. So that's the bottom side of the skylight typically. So if you see some rusty water, dirty stains around that, you know it's leaking and you should have replaced it a while ago. But if you're doing constant maintenance and checking your RV, you will see those cracks forming and you can replace it before the leak gets into the RV. Now looking at your vents, which are typically in a bathroom or kitchen area, so there'll be a square underneath of this. These ones are zip tied down so they don't rattle, so I'm not going to pull them off in this video. I'll throw some pictures on the screen so you can see what some of those vents look like and where those cracks typically are on those vents. And what happens over time, just like the skylight, the plastic breaks down. Eventually at those stress points of that vent cover, things start to crack and water leaks inside. You typically will see, just like the skylight, some staining around the trim ring, or you might just see some water dripping inside, possibly a wet bed or wet floor in a bathroom or wetness in the kitchen area because that vent cover is leaking. If you put some external covers over the vents like these, they protect that vent from the sunlight and the damage it can get. Plus, you can leave that vent open when it rains to get ventilation on some of those cloudy days. Now, let's go over to the corners of the roof, to the next common area I see water leaks. Now when you're looking down at the corners of the roof, these areas have a lot of flex and stretch into them. The reason being, there's a lot of things coming together in one spot. So you have the roof material, you have wall down here, your front cap up here. So all these things shrink and contrast differently over the winter time and when the RV is moving. So this joint right around here is pretty common for the sealant to pull back a little bit and have some little gaps in there. It's pretty easy to repair it. You use some non-sag die-core to make sure there's no gaps in there. That way water's not getting into your RV. So now if this area is leaking, it's a little bit harder to see things and it might be too late to actually see stuff. So, but signs that you have water leaking in these corners could be some wallpaper wrinkled inside. You might have some dampness, some bubbling on the walls, whether inside or outside. That's the point. There's water damage. It's a little bit too late. But if you keep track of things and look for any sealant that's separating, you can take care of it during your maintenance program before you have a real problem with the RV. All right, we're done on the roof. Let's go inside and look at some plumbing fixtures. Now, the toilet is one of the common areas I see leak in the RV, and where you're looking is near your foot flush pedal. Now there's a valve mechanism in there, and the seals and O-rings inside of there can dry out over time, and when they dry out, they shrink and things can leak when you put water back into them. So that means that seal is dried out and needs to be replaced. You can change the O-rings or seals or those things inside of there. So typically what you'd see as an issue is some water that's dripping on the floor by the foot pedal or around the base of the toilet, that indicates there's a possible leak. You might hear the toilet constantly running or just see water on the ground. Either one of those points to the water line or the valve in there, which should be repairable. As you look around at your faucets in the kitchen and bathroom, you might see some water leaking right below the valve where things move. Sometimes leaking all the time, sometimes when you move it. And that seal inside of there can start drying out just like the toilet valve and leak. Now with some RV faucets, you can find parts and pieces to replace. In other ones, you have to replace the whole faucet. And don't forget to look underneath of the sink, down at the water lines, down here. This is where your water line connections are. So you're going to check these lines and fittings for tightness. So way up here, look for anything that has signs of dripping. Typically, if you see some calcium buildup along this line, you know this fitting is leaking. At that point, you can replace the cone washer or the fitting itself. But inspect down here underneath of all your sinks and faucets to make sure you don't see any leaks. Now I know the internet's going to argue with me on this one, where they say it's perfectly fine to winterize your RV by blowing air through the lines and not using antifreeze. As an RV tech, I see lots of issues, people that blew out their RV with air, and it should be perfectly fine. They've been doing it for 20 years, but they might have got a different RV and things are built differently than they're used to. You might have a low spot in a line where water can pool up in that low spot and crack a line. You could have a different toilet valve where the air tries to blow all that water through there, but it sticks in a little tiny spot. A speck of water can freeze and break and crack that toilet valve, make a seal leak where maybe the toilet is running or leaking onto the ground, or your faucets or showers. Those areas that are very, very small where all it takes is a speck of water to make things break. And one of the most expensive ones is tankless water heaters. They have a lot of little nooks and crannies inside of there. You can try to blow all that water out of there, but it'll settle down to the bottom in that low spot. And all it takes is one freeze and a whole water heater needs to be replaced. Yes, some people say you can try to fix that crack on that tank or the line inside of a tankless water heater. But when you look at the manufacturer's recommendations, they say when it breaks, you have to replace the whole unit. Now as a recap, and a way to prevent issues when you open the RV up in the springtime is when you're winterizing it, look at all these areas I mentioned. So look over your slide-out seals, look at your kitchen faucets, bathroom faucets, toilets, those areas, and make sure things aren't leaking at that point. And winterize your RV with antifreeze so things aren't going to freeze and break. If you need to learn how to winterize your RV, I have a video showing you how to do that. It starts off using air to blow out all the water and follows up with antifreeze to make sure everything's protected inside of the RV. I'll drop a link to that video in the description down below. And if you're looking to learn more about maintaining your RV, you'll want to check out the RV education page on my website. And while you're there, you can sign up for my newsletter to get tips like this straight to your inbox.